Do you like movies and games also? Listen, so much more they all know. Vice, Pyro, Lotus, and friends. Welcome to Corrective Consciousness.
Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 134, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is
Lotus Prince
and PyroJackFrost.
So this week in Corrective, we are going to expand the topic that we introduced in Recon earlier this week. So if you want to hear the beginning of this discussion a little bit earlier, please listen to that. But we introduced this topic, and I'm mostly wanted to discuss this because the Etrian Odyssey games are back in the news again because Etrian Odyssey Nexus released on Tuesday this week, and also Persona Q 2 will be releasing in the spring, in June, right? Is that right, Pyro?
June. Yep.
One thing I didn't discuss that I wanted to quickly mention is there's a little bit of belly aching going on from the fan base. I don't know if you heard about this. There's going to be no English dub on Q2.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks, but at the same time, the 3DS games can't hold, yes, at least we're getting it, and it's not like they can hold tons of information, as I think. I don't know that much, but at least we're getting it, is my word, is my thinking. And I know a lot of people, for a lot of games, prefer Japanese subtitles for their one reason or another.
Sure.
I prefer the English usually, but at the same time, I'd rather take it without English subtitles, or dubbed, let's say. That's what I meant the whole time, is dubbed.
See, for me, it depends on what I'm doing. So, like, if I'm playing a video game, I'm actively playing that. Usually I'll go for the Japanese voice acting, unless it's, like, really good. English voice acting, like somebody I know. Like, if it's a Nolan North, I'll watch some Nolan North. But for anime, I kind of reversed recently. Like, I usually, for a long time, I was a big sub watcher, but I just got so busy that I can't watch something and not do something else, just because I'm so busy as an adult. That was cool when I was a teenager and, when I was in college, when I had the time to intensively watch something. But to have something on in the background and still know what's going on and not look at it 100% of the time is something that is worth something to me. I recently watched Lupin the Third, Castle of Cagliostro, which is an anime classic. It's the first Miyazaki theatrical film. It's really, really good. It got in the news recently because people are this isn't a new idea, but it got popularized. Somebody on Twitter mentioned like some old article that somebody had written that didn't get like a ton of circulation. That a lot of the environments of Castlevania 1 and 3 are based off of the Castle of Cagliostro.
Oh, really?
Which I didn't know. One of the major things is if you watch the chapel scene in Cagliostro, it has the cross with the rays coming out of it. It's actually the very first scene in Castlevania 3 when
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it's unmistakable. It isn't people making conjecture. It's like these are verifiable claims of taking inspiration, and it's believable too, because that would be something that everybody in Japan would have watched, and it would be a good reference for a European style castle in popular culture. So in Japanese culture, they do that all the time in making the school in Silent Hills based off of Kindergarten Cop's school. Directly, like it's like even down to posters on the walls.
Yeah,
things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to talk about first-person dungeon crawlers because this is a sub genre that I think is really a lot of fun, and we have some experience with them. There's different kinds of them, but these all started basically in in early computer days, there were some first-person games, like there was Hunt the Wumpus. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but
I have not heard of that one before.
Yeah, it was kind of like a maze that you went around in, kind of like the Minotaur maze. The Wumpus would be something that would eat you in first person, so it was actually kind of
that's terrifying.
Terrifying, yeah. It would chew on you, and kill you. There's some first person stuff, but the major game that set off all of this stuff and had some D&D ties was Wizardry, of course. I don't have very much experience with Wizardry other than playing the now Japanese offshoots. Occasionally I played like the PS2 game and the PS3 game, but they're really not my bag. They're very dry.
Was Wizardry the series that System Shock 1 used the engine of?
That was Ultima Underworld.
Oh, Ultima, okay.
But Ultima is the other big RPG from that era, but it's not first person. Ultima Underworld was a first person offshoot of Underworld, but that would count in this discussion. But I wanted to introduce that and then talk about some of our favorites. Probably the evolution of that genre was pushed forward by the actually licensed Dungeons and Dragons games. You'll hear like a lot of the old PC RPG fans talk about these. You have the gold box games is what they call them because they came in gold boxes. What do you know? But the biggest one of those, most popular one of those, is the Eye of the Beholder. This game has been ported to a lot of systems that people would have come in contact with. It was on the Super Nintendo and Sega CD, notably. So this made it into a more accessible space than those old PCs. The Sega CD version in particular is pretty cool to seek out because first of all, you could play that like you would play the PC version if you get a Mega Mouse. Not that you would do that, but but it also has a Yuzo Koshiro soundtrack, and it's pretty awesome, and also has an added ending, which is pretty cool. A lot of these games tend to be really crunchy and into their own systems. They tend to be very technical rather than being about story. That's why they call them dungeon crawlers. They're less about storytelling and even exploration of like the overworlds, but more like getting through the mazes and pitfalls of those. So
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I wanted to go over some of the ones from our childhood and also some really good examples of this genre, to get you in the spirit of the Etrian Odyssey, Nexus, and Persona Q2. One from mine and Lotus Prince's childhood is Stonekeep. Has the best sequel ever.
The best sequel ever. It's so good you can't buy it anymore.
It's better than Fury Road.
Yeah, it's better than Fury Road. It's better than Terminator 2. But in fact, all those sequels should have that title. It should be Mad Max, Bones of the Ancestors. It should be Terminator, Bones of the Ancestors.
So this was actually the first-person dungeon crawler I ever played. Because I didn't have any of the Wizardry games for NES or Super Nintendo. I first played this because my mom's best friend had bought us some computer games to go with our brand new Gateway 2000
I remember
back
that.
in 1995 when we got our Windows 95 machine. That was the first computer we had. So she had gotten us quite a few games, and this was one of them, and I just have such fond memories of it. It's a game made by Interplay, and it is an FMV game, an FMV first-person dungeon crawler. I never got very far in it as a kid because I didn't understand everything in it, but I always loved playing it. The first
voice acted.
It fully voice acted has Tim Curry in it as the bad guy, Colt Coom.
Yeah, there's a role that nobody knows he ever had.
Yeah, no, this was really mind-blowing for me at the time because, I was used to, the NES and Genesis games at the time, which is what I had. I didn't have a Super Nintendo until later, and a Game Boy, of course, but the first couple games that I got for PC, I had Myst, which we bought with the machine.
Yeah, Myst also had the voice acting, which was pretty rad at the time. Myst was
absolutely
shockingly gorgeous at the time.
It was the time of this multimedia stuff. So for even something as simple as getting your Encarta encyclopedia, it was really cool to listen to voice clips.
I remember.
Novelty.
I don't remember voice clips so much, but I do remember I looked up some term or some concept in the Encarta, and it came with like a little. I don't even know what the hell the resolution would have been, like 144p or 240p, but you could click a little video and this basic little 5 to 10 second, like, for your reference, video plays. And it's just like, whoa, like, this is truly the next level of looking up things in the encyclopedia.
Yeah, it was pretty neat because they tried to make them entertaining too. So, like, Encarta had, I remember, there was, Adam, the Inside Story. Do you remember that as well? It was also like
I don't think so.
So yeah, there was one that was an exploration of the human body as well. So that was a lot of fun.
I played Magic School Bus inside the human body. Does that count?
But yeah. All these games were applications were things that I had when I was a kid. But Stonekeep was special because this was the the only game like it that I had, and it also was really immersive. It came with a book.
Yep. Book of Thera.
Yeah, I still have it, by the way. And this is a game that you could buy on GOG right now. I definitely recommend it because it is not too. It hasn't aged poorly. I don't think. Like you'll laugh at the FMV stuff, and some of the pre-rendered
it
stuff.
looked cool at the time,
but in terms of gameplay, it is not inconvenient to play. You could save wherever you want, which is cool.
Yeah, that's very important.
It has an in-game map that gets revealed as you go through it. You just have to hit an F button, like F7 or whatever.
You have to reload the map.
You have to put. It doesn't have a mini map, or if it does, it's really tiny.
Okay.
So you have to bring it up every 5 seconds
from gameplay to map. Yeah, it's
gotcha.
A little like.
But unlike Etrian Odyssey Etrian Odyssey, you have to make your own map, and that's fun in that game. But everything before Stonekeep, you basically had to make your own map on graph paper. They expected you to make it on paper.
Which, I mean, back in the day, that was fun as well.
That was the point. That was fun, but like a lot of people today, I think, don't mess up. By the way,
yeah,
but,
exactly.
Like, a lot of people today, though, are just like, video games are all like 40 hours long. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
So this was one of the first games with an auto map, which was nice, and in this genre, and it also has like a lot of. It's not turn-based either. It is action-based.
Click for swinging.
It's a good entry into this series, but I would still play Etrian Odyssey Nexus because that's the new hotness. But
like it is a proper RPG, and actually, Pyro, for context, I know you've played at least the first Legend of Grimrock, right?
Correct.
I mean, like picture the Legend of Grimrock 15 years, or like if they were made 15 years earlier and actually had like a proper plot and characters.
Like I was actually going to say you guys should discuss Legend of Grimrock because that's kind of the I would say like successor to this type of game.
Yeah, because like Grimrock in Stonekeep, you also move based on like tiles or squares. If you tap the forward key, you move forward. If you tap left or right, you turn 90 degrees
as well. It's kind of like a first-person dungeon crawler. I as I was saying that, I'm like, that's kind of what this whole category is about.
Yeah.
You're saying. But like, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Did Legend of Grimrock come after the first Etrian Odyssey?
Yes.
Grimrock's pretty new. It's like
it's within the last 8 years or so.
Because I feel I'm not sure which one of them I played first, but like Grimrock was one of the first like actual dungeon crawler RPGs where you actually attack in the map, and you don't have like separate battles you have to go through.
Yeah, you click a character, click attack.
I really enjoyed it, even though like the last boss was stupid as shit in the first Legend of Grimrock, and like we were mentioning,
I liked what you had to do with it, but the boss itself was like, okay,
right, and there wasn't much of a story at all. But like it was really fun, and it's like it's one of those things like I really like for dungeon crawlers, but I'm not a huge fan of roguelikes in the sense of because that don't have a lot of like overall progression.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you lose your character, it's like, okay, I basically just start from scratch. Like I don't really enjoy that as much, but this is kind of like a first-person version of I move, everything else moves. I move, everything else moves.
Yeah.
And I really liked that there were like the puzzles and the combat system was pretty interesting as well.
There was some clever stuff, like you could throw a rock to hit a pressure plate or something like that instead of you stepping on it. By the way, did you ever play Grimrock 2?
I have not gotten a chance to. I mean, I say that, and it's been out for a while.
I know, but I know
it's been on my list of games that I kind of want to play.
I think you would like it, because it takes the Grimrock formula and expands on it. Like, you can go in and out of dungeons. There's sort of an overworld, kind of. It still has enemies on the outside, so it's almost a dungeon in and of itself, but, like, you're not just in a dungeon going downstairs for the entire game. There's more to do. There are different areas that have like environmentally appropriate enemies, like there are like skeletons in the dungeon, and there are giant crabs like outside by the beach, like that kind of thing.
Giant enemy crabs.
Oh, no doubt. But there's more of like it feels like there's more of a plot. Everything's still left in notes you find on the ground. It's not like you're talking to NPCs, but there's more like to learn and explore in Grimrock 2, I feel. And it also plays with expectations. There's like one area in the game that's really, really like wider open than you would expect from, especially after playing Grimrock 1, where like the entire game is rooms connected by hallways. So it feels pretty refreshing to be outside every now and again. You might want to use a guide to like figure out where to go, because you have a lot of leeway in terms of where to go, whereas in Grimrock 1, when you find the stairs leading down, you did it,
Right.
But Grimrock 2, I think, also has two endings, like the you got to the goal that was intended ending, but wait, don't you want to know where such and such a thing came from? Maybe go explore that and get like the extra like effort ending, which is kind of nice, because in Grimrock 1 I think it was just the one ending, like you kill that boss and that's it. Like Grimrock is a decent enough game, but Grimrock 2, it's not Stonekeep levels of plot, but there's definitely more, and I think I like the game more for what it is, because like again, Grimrock 1 is literally nothing but stone walls surrounding you the entire game. And that's the point, but you kind of start feeling it after a while.
So I should preface to our audience here that these the games that we're talking about here are some of the easiest to get into. I should say, and I should warn you, if you go back to any of the originals, starting with the Dungeon Master or Wizardry or the Gold Box games like I have the Beholder, those games are hard as shit.
I have the Beholder. It's one of those games that I mean, you mentioned Ultima Underworld as well, but these were games that had instruction manuals and also hint or clue books, because you damn well needed them. Like, have you ever tried using this on the evil sorcerer? Or perhaps you want to be in this location when this happens, because you're not figuring this shit out on your own.
Yeah. So just to give you some context, the first 3 Wizardry games are almost impossible unless you're a huge nerd. And the reason why I say this is you cannot play any of the sequels like a separate game. These were amongst the first games where you could travel with your character. They were meant to be played like D&D campaigns.
So in Game 2 you pick up your character from Game 1?
Yes, but God help you if you try to re-roll a character in 2, because
you're expected to be level 10 or something.
You're expected to be at top level in Wizardry 1.
That kind of reminds me of Quest for Glory, but they weren't. I don't think they were that demanding across games.
Each game gets progressively more and more difficult, and they assume that you played the last one.
Oh god.
So
what
not only that,
design.
but even the first game had its its own intricacies that are a big pain in the ass these days. You barely ever see a game that expects you to eat and drink, or your character will die.
Grimrock does. There's a constant hunger. Yeah, there's a constant hunger meter. And by the way, if a character dies, they're dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Stonekeep does not expect this of you. You eat from health, and that's it.
Yeah, Stonekeep, it's just an RPG plot. Just play the game.
Etrian Odyssey, you can get your ass kicked, but you don't have to worry about supplies like that. Health potions, sure, but like not. You don't have to worry about water levels. So I should say that this type of genre is very, very crunchy and very into very mathematical systems and management.
Speaking of management in Grimrock, your items do have weight, including food.
Yeah. So this is very much like the hardcore mode of Fallout 3. If anybody has played that, or the hardcore mode of New Vegas. I don't know whether they put it into Fallout 4, but just to give people context. So that's what those things are based on, is stuff like that. So Legend of Grimrock has always been a series that has intrigued me. By the way, the first one was released in 2012, and the second one was 2014, just to give our listeners some context. Whereas, Eye of the Beholder is like an 80s game, and
I was
Stonekeep is an early 90s game.
Yeah, Eye of the Beholder, I was mentioning this before we went on the air, but like, I genuinely have no idea where I got this from. But, like, I have a copy of Eye of the Beholder. Like, no box. I have the manuals. But I have, like... It's kind of funny. I have it on 3.5-inch, like, hard floppy disks. But they're labeled to correspond to what you might expect from the 5-inch floppy disks. Because one disc is labeled discs 1 and 2. The second disc is labeled discs 3 and 4, and the third one is labeled disc 5. So that if you want to install it that way.
Yeah, I should correct myself. Eye of the Beholder came out in 91.
Okay.
So not too far off, but just to give you context, Stonekeep I believe was 94 or 95. Anyway,
we play as Drake.
Drake returns. But yeah. These games were, in 95, I was right. So it was brand new when I received it. So that's pretty cool. But Etrian Odyssey kind of reawoken this kind of game. These games were pretty popular on the DS, probably more popular than they thought they would be. And I absolutely loved the first game. I played so much of it. I dropped off in the second game because it expected me to have a type of character in which I did not have. And I now know that is my fault. You should have a character that does everything. You should have somebody in waiting that can do all different kinds of things.
Yeah, I fell for that in Dark Cloud. Like, there's one character I just never felt like playing as, and then at the end of the game, you really needed a projectile attack user. I was like, oh no. Like, on like literally the final boss, I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. So, but I love this. Like we've been saying, you make your own map in this game, meaning the grid is on the bottom screen of the DS and 3DS, depending on which entry that you're playing in these games, and you get to draw the walls as you're looking at them, and also you can mark where traps are, where there are
item
spawn
nodes,
nodes,
doors, stuff like that. Yeah, and I played, I think, the first 2 or 3 Etrian Odysseys. I got past like the first world in each of them, and then I kind of gave up. Like, it was because I kind of the same reason why I kind of lost interest in tactics games. I'm not a fan of like micromanaging like so many people, and when I have that many choices as to like how to increase their stats, I kind of get analysis paralysis.
Me too.
Yeah.
But the Persona Q games kind of eased off on the progression of characters in that sense. But and obviously because of the theme, I really stuck with it because I do like making the maps. And I think that's probably the most fun I have with Etrian Odyssey games. And I like making the characters, but getting through the battles to level them up and whatever was too much of a chore for me for those games, but I stuck with it for Persona. The final bosses was kind of lame. I didn't enjoy that. That's why I didn't beat it. But like the rest of it up to there, I thought was fun enough, and I thought like the puzzles that they had were pretty cool. Like the because they have the FOEs, which in the Etrian Odyssey and Persona Q games are kind of like really, really difficult enemies for that map that you're not supposed to be able to beat until you're like 2 maps later.
What does FOE mean?
I don't remember what it stands for,
Foe.
but it's a foe.
Yeah, foe.
But it stands for something.
Like field of something?
No, E is enemy.
They stand for different things in both games, but but it's supposed to be like a very powerful enemy. But there's like puzzles around them. It's like, how do you get past this map without encountering the foe? Which
field
is really...
on enemy.
Okay.
Huh.
And what is it in Persona Q? If you don't mind looking that up.
I can look that
but yeah,
up.
they're pretty fun in that sense. But it's really hard to have like the enemies that you can kill, like normal enemies that kill you in one hit. I mean, I know I play the Mega 10 games, which can kind of be like that, but I find a little bit more fair in that sense.
Now I know why you didn't remember.
Right. I know that Persona Q calls it something really, really weird.
Physis Oikian Eidolon.
Well, I've heard of Eidolon, but like
Eidolon. Yeah,
what?
there we go.
Yeah, no, it's a Japanese thing. Let's just say that.
It's fine.
But yeah, those I really enjoyed those games, and there's another game like them that I actually was just thinking about as we were talking. I think it was called like Class of Heroes or something.
Yeah, Class
for,
of
like,
Heroes.
Vita, I think it was, or per PSP, where you are in like a school for heroes, I guess you could say, and you create your party from like 10 different races and like 10 different classes, and you can pick male or female for each of them, and you go dungeon crawling and level them up. And that was pretty fun until I got to the point again where I didn't know where I was going. Enemies were getting really annoying, but overall I thought that was actually a really fun game and a really cool version of the dungeon crawler kind of game. I think it was really more closely connected to the Wizardry series than like what Etrian Odyssey did, because you don't make your own map in that.
So I remember Class of Heroes, especially since Class of Heroes 2, I believe, was the very last PSP game.
That might have been the one that I was thinking it was too. I don't think I played the first one, but I think I played the second one.
Yeah, and this was released. The first one was released shortly after Etrian Odyssey because they made the games popular again. There was some kind of controversy with this that only like really people that were really into these games knew about, or maybe it wasn't. Okay, so I know why. Okay, so apparently the Class of Heroes games are made by the people who make the current Wizardry games.
I just feel like they were connected in that sense.
So yeah. So the first Class of Heroes had a controversy because some of the dungeons have the same exact layout as one of the other Wizardry games. Yeah, and it's like you don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, didn't I just play this game?
Yeah, it's a choir makes the.
And they made like a more recent Wizardry game too, I think. Not like now, but back in that time, they made a Wizardry game too.
Yeah, the PS2 game and the PS3 game. They made the PS3
I think
game.
I tried that one as well.
Yeah. So yeah, those games are. I don't like them nearly as much as the Etrian Odyssey games. The Etrian Odyssey games have a lot of soul to them. That's why I suggest them to a lot of people. That's how I got back into these types of games. These games are like they're anime. They have cool looking characters. They have cool looking enemies. There's cool environments. It's a lot of fun. It has a whole lot of it just has personality. Cool. Yeah, and great music, obviously, Yuzo Koshiro. It even has a really good background story if you pay attention enough to it. It kind of has story that's told in dribs and drabs when you talk to NPCs in it. But the story in the I've talked about it on air before, but Etrian Odyssey 1 has one of my favorite twists in video gaming history.
Oh yeah, I remember you had told me what it was back in the day, because I'm not gonna play this game. I thought it was super clever.
Nobody's gonna play the first one at this point, so I'm okay with spoiling, and I've spoiled it before.
Nah, but even so, but that is super clever though.
Yeah. So anyway, really cool stuff. I would say stay away from the Class of Heroes games.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the second one, I guess it was, for the time that I played, but that was only like a handful of hours. Yeah. And then it got to be like the annoying. I mean, like same with the wizardry games. It gets to be that annoying time where, like, you have to just grind dungeons to level up, and
yeah. By the way, speaking of which, going back to Grimrock, that's one thing that, with maybe like one exception, you really can't do. You can't grind in those games because
the enemies were limited, weren't they?
I think there might have been like one area in Grimrock 1 where you could stay for a while, but like the thing is, even I think enemies are limited, but so is food. So you really gotta like. I think there might have been like one area in Grimrock 1 that had a bunch of raptors that drop meat. So like, if you really wanted to, but for the most part, even with some respawn, like, yeah, you don't have all the food in the world unless, I think Grimrock 2 offers you, I forgot what they're called, like a gardener or an herbalist or something, where like that's their whole gimmick, but otherwise you're kind of on borrowed time without knowing it.
Yeah. So around that same time, there was kind of a renaissance going around because Etrian Odyssey kind of had brought this back into fashion. But there was a game called The Dark Spire for the DS as well. So this game was pretty fun. You could actually play it in like 8 like you could make it look like the original Wizardry, meaning like it was black and white and kind of had vector-ish graphics. And that had amazing music. I definitely recommend looking up videos of it. It's not as fun to play as Etrian Odyssey, but it does have an auto map feature, which is good.
Is that made by Falcom?
No, Dark Spire was made by a random company. I don't remember who made it because it was not a normal one of my favorites.
Gotcha.
But anyway, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, Success.
Okay.
Gotcha. And it was published by Atlas and Success.
Okay. Yeah. And there were a bunch of other games too that weren't as good, but this one had particularly good music and a cool aesthetic, so I wanted to go over that. But actually, some of my favorites from that era were actually found in an unusual spot. So you wouldn't think that a cell phone game from this era would be fun, but I had a flip phone at the time, and this was back when we played Java games before there were smartphones.
Yeah, you want to play Centipede?
Yeah, most of them were really bad. You mean Snake?
You are correct. It was Snake. Yeah.
Yeah. Most of these games are pretty garbage, and very few were really worth your time. Every once in a while, you had like a spin-off of a series that you really enjoyed, but even those weren't even that great. You know,
literally more entertaining games on the calculator, like TI-83 Plus. Yeah.
Yeah, but the exception to these rules is that it made quite a few RPGs based off of their classic first-person shooters.
Yeah, that's insane.
They were dungeon crawlers in every sense, essentially. They were turn-based. They had class-based systems once you got further into the series, and had some of the best dialogue that I've ever read. And actually, some of the deep lore of some of the id games actually comes from these.
Wait, really?
Or not? Yes. So I am referring to Doom RPG 1 and 2 and Wolfenstein RPG. These games,
I love stuff like that.
Actually tie Wolfenstein and Doom together, and it has some of the funniest dialogue that I've ever read. They're really, really good. If you can find a way to emulate them, it is worth your time. I am upset that there is no good way to play them now, because they are genuinely great RPG experiences, and it's really a shame. And I'm not just saying that; it's not nostalgia or anything. It has some of the funniest dialogue, and some of the like the way that the characters react to what's happening around them is hilarious. It also gets super challenging towards the end of Doom RPG 1. There is just an insane amount of archviles resurrecting crap that you already killed. It is one of the most difficult sequences in a game that I've ever played, and I barely got through it.
You know what that reminds me of? This isn't the same thing, but did you ever play Final Doom?
I have not, no.
Alright, there's one level called Hunted, and there are two incredibly creepy things about it. Did you ever beat Doom 1 Episode 3? That's by Mastermind. So do you remember the music that plays when you win? You have the cutesy music that turns creepy when it pans to like your dead little bunny.
I do know
Daisy.
that. Yeah, you told me about that.
And the music gets like disturbing later. So for one thing, the level Hunted, that's the music that plays, like the credits theme of Doom 1 Episode 3. But on top of that, when you start the level, you're in a room with one-way walls, like you can see through them, but the enemies can't see you. And on either side of you is just 2 rooms stuffed with archviles that are just in their neutral walking around positions. And when you cross a certain threshold, they all start moving and run into an invisible teleporter and disappear. And then you go through a teleporter and you find that you're in a maze. And they're just in there somewhere. It's like the scariest opening for a level ever. You're just like, oh no. So deal with that shit.
Wow. That's insane. But yeah, I definitely recommend those. Those are great. And but one that's more accessible is there was a DS game called Orcs and Elves that was made by the same team. Nice. And it is a medieval themed, and it is really, really good and uses the same engine as those
feel
games.
like I've played that before. It sounds really familiar.
Yeah, that game is really fun. And nobody talks about it. It was released by EA back in the day. It's also one of the very few games to support the DS Rumble Pack as well. But yeah, a really, really, really fun experience. Definitely recommend it because it's a blast. Those are like the major games that I wanted to talk about. The only other one that I really just wanted to mention real quick is one that's on my radar is I want to play Xanadu next, which is Falcom's probably most recent.
That's one that I was thinking about because I played the original Xanadu, which was not even close to being a first-person dungeon crawler. It was a third-person over the top, like isometric kind of click, like kind of like Diablo, but not a loot based, but the idea where you click enemies to. I believe. It's been a while since I played it. So I think I remember hearing you talk about Xanadu next, and to hear that it's a first-person dungeon crawler, I'm surprised because like it's such a change from the original Xanadu. Or at least the Xanadu that I played. It might be that's why it's called Next, because it's a different form.
Yeah, I might be wrong. Maybe you're right. No, you're right. That's Xanadu Next, actually. I probably got that confused with a different game that's not a first-person crawler. That's more of a Diablo clone, so I'm sorry for even mentioning that. But
it's still a good game, though, and I'd recommend playing that. It was really, really fun.
I want to check that one out. And Lotus, I believe you wanted to talk about... just say a brief word about the history of Demon Souls and how we got to have Demon Souls through this genre.
Yeah, this was weird. So, way back in the day on the PS1, From Software released Kingsfield. There were 4 Kingsfield games, one of them being on the PS2, but America only got 3 of them. So we got, like, our Kingsfield 1 and 2 is actually Japan's Kingsfield 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. And then Kingsfield the Ancient City doesn't have a number on it, but it is the 3rd game in America and 4th game in Japan. But they're first-person, I guess, dungeon crawlers.
No, they're dungeon crawlers in every sense.
Like, because I mean, like I've played Eternal Ring, and there's an overworld, but the point is dungeons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't know how yet, except for like one name, but apparently Kingsfield is actually in canon with and ties into somehow the Dark Souls universe. I don't know about Demon Souls, but definitely Dark Souls.
What was it? The dragon? The dragon's name?
Yeah, Seath. I'm curious as to what it's like in Demon Souls, or in Kingsfield, whichever one that may be, and I'm curious to see where it goes and if the PS2 game is even related anymore. But I'm just curious as to how that's gonna go. The only thing I'm a little nervous about though is I've played Eternal Ring, so that's a PS2 game, and those controls were insanely clunky. So I can only expect the PS1 controls to be even clunkier, or at least. Or at best, I should say, the same level of clunkiness. Like, with the PS1, not every PS1 controller had analog sticks. Very few games really made use of them anyway, mandatorily. I don't even know if any of them made use of them mandatorily.
Ape Escape,
alright. But, like, in Eternal Ring, we're using PS2 controllers. Obviously, those have analog sticks, but you just didn't use the analog sticks. Like, there was nothing mapped to them in Eternal Ring. So... like, this is well before people learned to aim with the right stick. That wouldn't come until later. So Eternal Ring is clunky as hell. So Kingsfield will probably be at least as clunky. But I would like to take a look at them, if only to see how they relate to the Dark Souls universe. And while we're on that subject, I'd also like to take a look at Echo Knight. And I don't know if Echo Knight's a dungeon crawler, but Shadow Tower totally is a dungeon crawler, to the point where I think you're literally only in a dungeon and there's no music.
So I guess my point was that Dark Souls gets its design even though it's not a first-person dungeon crawler itself, gets its design philosophy and challenge, and themes from this genre.
Yeah, so, even Eternal Ring. Like, Eternal Ring is definitely not a Souls game in disguise, but there's a heavy focus on dragons in that game, and the Souls games love their dragons. Demon Souls had the dragon god boss, and they made a big deal of it. And Dark Souls is all about the aftermath of a war between humans and dragons, and there's a bunch of dragon enemies and bosses in that game. From Software, they love them some dragons, I guess.
Great. Anybody want some last words before we go on to our weeklies here?
Nope.
I'll throw in one last thing. This is certainly not a first-person RPG dungeon crawler, but there's a brief part where it has the effect of it. King's Quest V, there's one part where you're thrown into a maze, and this is a third-person game, it's a point-and-click, but navigating this maze was particularly difficult at the time, because if you ever, say, went left, then when you're loaded onto the next screen, you're facing forward, so you have to remember, like, your orientation when you're moving around. Like, King's Quest VI made it more 2D. Like, if you click the right side of the screen, then you appear on the left side of the next screen. But King's Quest V, you're always facing ahead. So it could get potentially disorienting, and I think that's a little bit of that old school dungeon crawler experience where it wasn't a huge maze, but you kind of wanted your graph paper for it. Just a quick little shout out.
Absolutely. Well, we'll move on to our weeklies here. I'll do my weigh-in. I forgot to do it last week, but the last time I weighed in, I had gained a little bit because of the holidays and also MagFest and having fun there.
Yeah, MagFest will do that.
But I am happy to report that I'm back at my my base weight, which was 255. So
nice.
And I got laid off earlier last week, so I should probably get thinner.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's another burden that you no longer have to put up with.
So yeah, if you could hire me for messing up anybody's intros.
Actually, speaking of which, I was gonna make a joke about it at the risk of doing the same joke 2 weeks in a row, which is why I held off, but you nailed both reactive and corrective first try this week.
I did.
Yeah, boy.
Aw.
Shaving off those extra intros.
But yeah, my girlfriend and I have been very conscious about what we've been eating. I eat French fries only like once a week, if that, anymore. Every time it comes with a meal, I've been getting salads. And we've been cooking a lot rather than eating out, so that's been helping a lot.
The thing with French fries, by the way, I mean, it obviously varies from restaurant to restaurant, but the majority of my experiences, when you ask for fries, they give you a fucking ton.
Yeah,
like, it's insane. Like,
because they're so cheap to make.
Yeah, like on occasions where I've had French fries, I eat like 10 or 15 or something, and there's like a whole plate left, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. Like, there's no way.
You get sick of them halfway through.
Yeah.
Especially if you get used to not eating them.
Yeah.
I've been doing well. I've been tonight even I ate at a diner with my friends, and all I had was my sandwich, and I got the salad bar to go along with it, and I didn't even have them on the plate to tempt me. So, with the smell of them or anything like that.
Yeah, that's and not to mention like going back to having a lot of them, like you're like we're tempted to clean our plate because it looks weird if we don't. The thing is, we should not be afraid of getting like the rest of the food to take home or something. Like, again, even with regular meals, a bunch of the times you could probably turn that into 2 meals if you wanted to. Eating it all at once because now you're finished. Like that depending on where you go, that can be a lot.
Yeah, I've been doing that with hamburgers, especially have a lot of calories.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, half of a hamburger is quite a bit of food anyway to keep you.
Or like those deli
full.
sandwiches that are enough for like 16 people.
Well, yeah. If you go and get one of those crazy Reubens from like a Jewish deli or something,
those things
will kill you. Yeah, those things will kill you. We actually have a really good Jewish deli near us called the Kibitz Room that makes these insane, awesome.
Kibitz or of course it'd be called something like that.
You could go there when you're a little naughty,
yeah,
but
you had a lot of chutzpah to step right in there and boldly.
Yeah, no, boldly go. But
you should walk in there eating a Reuben and ask if they have anything kosher.
But this place is awesome. But like seriously, you can eat. You can maybe get through a quarter of one of their actual
not
sandwiches.
even an exaggeration. It's ridiculous. I didn't know obviously you can make food as big as you want, but I didn't know they would like anybody served sandwiches that big. Like for whom? I guess it's supposed to be for a family or something.
I don't know. It's just the custom, I guess. But anyway, I mean, it's delicious, so you're not going to be upset.
Yeah.
You're just going to be full and hurting.
Yes.
But anyway, I've been staying away from crap like that, even though I love it. I'm a big pastrami fan, but not so much anymore while I'm trying to lose. So I'm happy to report that I didn't fall completely off the wagon. So we can move on to fan reactions here.
Yeah, we have a few here. So this is in response to us talking about those like boob mouse pads where I said that the best one definitely is Joseph Joestar. Living Corpse, Dr. Livingston Corpse, I presume. But Living Corpse says, no, the best boob-ass mouse pad is Samus in her armor. That's actually pretty clever. I like that.
Or Chrom. From Fire Emblem, there's a Chrom butt pad.
Nice.
That's funny.
And then Living Corpse also says, this is in regard to our conversation about what video game movies that already exist we would improve and how. This is something I can't believe I forgot, but Living Corpse says Doom. Make it I'm not quoting.
Oh yeah, they were genetically engineered in the movie, right?
Yeah, like make the monsters from hell and shoot fireballs, and also the characters go to hell. Like you know, like literally the only thing resembling a plot in Doom, and the movie didn't do it.
Yeah,
like,
is that it?
They're demons.
They had
the end.
They had opened up a portal to hell by accident.
Yeah, like there's no story in Doom. The only thing you get is you're killing demons. Go, and the movie didn't do that. It's like, okay.
They didn't even say rip and tear once.
Well, I'm kind of happy they didn't do that. But it would be like in Mortal Kombat if there were no fighting. It's like, what are you doing? And Dracologist responded with something pretty amusing. Doom movie is the best Resident Evil movie. He's not wrong. And Dracologist also says, regarding Ninja Gaiden Z, like Yaiba, he says, mostly what I heard... what people complain about is, why is it not Ryu Hayabusa? Like, the game's probably fine, but it's like, yeah, why is it not Things I Know? Also, he follows up by saying, Japanese horror is often more baffling than creepy. Depends. Yeah, so a lot of times it really is, but sometimes it's creepy.
It could be really creepy.
Yeah. I find that a lot of Japanese horror, like, shocks you with something that you don't know how to comprehend.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are comedies like that too.
You're like House.
Well, yeah, I was specifically thinking of Funky Forest and.
Oh yeah,
well, that wasn't a horror movie, but that had some
No.
creepy as shit body horror elements in it.
Yeah. There's actually
what?
a spiritual successor. We'll have to watch one of these.
Wait, really?
days. Yes.
Well, I heard that it existed.
Yeah, I kind of want to watch that.
Well, I don't remember if I'd heard of a spiritual successor or an actual sequel.
It's a movie by like the same director. Then it's kind of the same kind of weird.
Because I remember seeing somebody bring up on a forum there might have been some sequel or something that's just like impossible to find. So I don't know.
Oh,
but,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, Fakafan also says regarding Kingdom Hearts 3, can confirm KH3 is really fun. The only real downside is that everyone in the cutscene sounds very, very tired. I mean, after over a decade of wait, I'd be exhausted as well.
Well, if you were
Fair
Haley
enough.
Joel Osment right now, I'm sure you would feel tired too.
Yeah, I mean, I heard because I was watching Mars Girl stream a little bit of the story so far, so I think it was going through some recoded cutscenes, and Hades sounded weird, man. Some people in the chat were like, "Did they get a different voice
James
actor
Woods?
for him?"
Did
Yeah,
you know that Woody is not, because Tom Hanks didn't do it, but is voiced by his brother? I think it's John Hanks.
I did not know that.
And apparently, John Hanks is the voice of Woody for all like the non-major movies and stuff.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Because apparently they sound a lot alike.
But regarding Hades,
But they can get him for cheap.
Yeah, but regarding Hades, people were in the chat asking, like, is this a different voice actor? And apparently it really wasn't. It was just like a very like phoned in performance.
Yeah, well, James Woods is not on the best terms with the internet right now either.
No.
So.
Although, one more comment. I really got a kick out of this one because there's a lot of information I didn't know. This is when we were talking about cut or like unrealized potential in games. And I had mentioned Asagi from, I forgot what she started in, maybe like Makai Kingdom or something. But I mentioned that she was a cameo character who had a canceled game. So her shtick is that she's bitter that she doesn't have a game to star in. Apparently, I was a little wrong about this, but it was not unreasonable for me to be wrong about this. So, Kawayo Inyo gave a bunch of information about this, most of which I've never heard of. So, apparently, her full name is Asagi Asagiri. He says, obviously a pun. Do not make me explain it. It's a Japanese thing. I went ahead and Googled it anyway. I looked up what Asagiri is. Apparently the translation is morning fog, but that's probably not what we're going for. It also comes up as a class of destroyer, like a warship, and that is relevant because Asagi was going to be from Makai Wars, which is a game that didn't happen, except apparently it did. So he says the game was never canceled, just, quote, postponed indefinitely for many years due to Nippon Ichi just being, in long story short, fuck-ups. And he says, as always, ever since after Marl Okoku 2, Little Princess Plus One, yes, that is an actual title of that game, and do not make me explain why La Pucelle is a sequel to Tenchi no Present, and why Tenchi no Present is both a prequel and a sequel to both the first Marl Okoku and Little Princess Plus One at the same time, making La Pucelle essentially a Marl Okoku 4, while La Pucelle herself also is connected to Disgaea in a set of very bizarre ways. Whoa, man, series, follow that shit.
What was that, Marl Princess, what was that released in the United States as? I
don't even know.
Yeah, it was like, it started with an R, anyway.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I forget what it's called though. It was a singing-based game.
Yeah, Rhapsody?
Was that the...
Yeah,
Rhapsody one? That was Rhapsody?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, that's weird. Astro Pucelle being connected to Disgaea, I don't know about plot, but I do know that there's a little bit of overlap regarding, like, Prie being, like, a secret unlockable fight and then character in Disgaea 1 and then onward to the point where apparently she just exists in the Disgaea universe now. But Makai... This is the part that really got me. Makai Wars was finally released in February 2018. Remembering that Makai Kingdom was when we were in college, this is like 2006 or 7. So talk about fucking delayed. So Makai Wars was released in 2018 as a mobile game. Huh. And Asagi is the main protagonist of that, essentially ending the entirety of that long-running lame meme once and for all. So Asagi finally has her game. Jesus Christ, she had to wait over a decade for it. So that's something. And now for our question, Living Corpse asks, favorite femme fatale. Not sure if she counts, but Lucy from Elfin Lead, though she is not your traditional femme fatale. Though if she doesn't, then Eliza. So femme fatale, that's kind of a hard one. I don't know if this counts either, but I kind of like Carmen Sandiego, even though except for the new Netflix series where she's like a protagonist, she's usually the bad guy who steals things, but you finally like catch up to her and she's just gone like every single time, and she does crazy bullshit like just flies a helicopter over the Statue of Liberty and just picks it up and goes. Like I don't know what she's gonna do with it, but whatever. And she has goons with corny pun names. I'll take it.
I was always a fan of the Sin City series by Frank Miller.
Sure. Yeah.
The girl in the red dress was a femme fatale, a dame to kill for. Yeah, I remember this. Oh wait, I forget her name in this one. It was Eva Green, I think, was the character. But anyway, I always liked the characters in those, and most of those are femme fatales.
Actually,
really
speaking of Woman in the Red Dress was a femme fatale, freaking Ada Wong, kind of in Resident Evil 2, and definitely in Resident Evil 4.
Yeah, she's definitely. I mean, I was just gonna go with, like, I can't think of many femme fatales, and I don't even know if she would count, but I do like Black Widow. I think she would count as a femme fatale.
That probably does, yeah.
I'm actually trying to look up other femme fatales because I can't really think of many.
I will say Carmen Sandiego has the look.
Carmen Sandiego is definitely. I actually have been watching the recent TV shows.
I hear it's all right.
It's actually pretty good, especially because like later on they actually have like segments where they do some like edutainment, kind of like
really?
Hit some educational parts. I'm like, cool, they kept it. And I was talking to my fiance saying how I could see the cartoon connecting to, in a way, depending how they do it, the Carmen Sandiego of the games. Because in a way, Carmen Sandiego was a villain in the games, but she
was totally a villain in the games.
But she didn't really do, like, I guess she stole.
Well, she's responsible for whatever goon, like, you finally capture the criminal, and that's like, but wait, can you capture Carmen Sandiego?
So the femme fatale I was specifically thinking of at Sin City, and there are many of them, but Becky is the one from Big Fat Kill, and she was depicted in the movie, the original Sin City, by Alexis Bledel. Bledel. I want to mention a classic one. I actually kind of like the Dick Tracy movie, even though it's corny as shit. But it has Madonna as Breathless Mahoney, but also she is another character as well, but I won't reveal. But Breathless Mahoney is a great name for a femme fatale. Absolutely.
Also, you kind of have the I mean, even though your character was garbage, there was I'm not remembering her name, but like the woman in Police Knots.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's your girlfriend or wife in the beginning, but she's in the game for like only a little while. But the this is killing me because I'm forgetting the name, but the woman you meet who does like the Basic Instinct scene, like in The Office.
Yeah, I'm mostly like the character that gets portrayed as the femme fatale, but it turns out that they're innocent in the end. So Jessica Rabbit fits that to a T.
Oh yeah, she really has the attitude down too.
So she's written
like
as a
in the club.
She's written as a femme fatale, and you're made to believe throughout the movie that she is the femme fatale in the movie, but she turns out to be completely innocent in the whole thing. Jessica Rabbit is an archetypal character that you think is going to be that type of character, but ends up not. She ends up being a red herring, as it were. So yeah, I think we got some good ones there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are other things in like
plenty
classic noir, like does Casablanca have one? I'm trying to think of like every like or no, not Casablanca. Maltese Falcon.
Yeah, they all have them to a degree. I mean, there's a lampshaded one, a red herring kind of situation going on in Chinatown as well.
Mm-hmm.
Basically she's the dame that walked in, that gets the main character all in trouble, the private eye in trouble.
Gotcha.
Happens pretty frequently in that genre. It even happens in the Red Harvest, which I've talked about before.
Yeah.
That character is in there too, and a lot of times you could predict what happens with them, but sometimes they end up being like the mastermind of the entire thing, or sometimes they just get caught up in it. Sometimes they get like killed pretty early on in the stories too. So there's some interesting things that they do with the archetype, which is pretty neat. So it isn't just the same thing all the time.
Yeah, I do kind of like it. This is getting a little off topic, but I do kind of like it when there's a suspect and like a lot of movies reveal at the very end, like, oh wait, they weren't actually the bad guy. Like you've been following the wrong trail all along. This is the bad guy. But I kind of like it when movies have like you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, yeah, that person could be the villain, and then they're dead in like the next scene, and you're like, oh well.
Yeah. So I think we covered some ground there. So definitely keep us supplied here. That is the show for this week. We want to thank our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with these awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Also, keep reacting to what we've been talking here. That was pretty fun. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. You can. It helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. See, it wasn't flub free. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Reactive Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on Steam, PSN, Xbox Live, Twitter, Switch, and Battle.net.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you're interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, I'm wrapping up Binary Domain right now, or getting involved in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon accounts, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me as PyroJackFrost or Cloudoid540 on PSN, Xbox. Nope, not Xbox. PSN, Switch, Battle.net, and I'm probably missing one or two, but just look for me, and you may or may not find me. And chat with me, and I may or may not answer.
Perfection.
Wonder bar.
One of those things will happen.
All right, well, we'll catch you next week on Tuesday for another episode of Reactive. Hopefully, we won't have to deal with any more drama next week, but I'm sure there'll be something.
There's always drama.
Yeah.
It's
all
like I
have
live
to
in a
do is
CW
not
show.
Look that hard. CW show, jeez. Well, until next time, everyone.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Catch ya.